The B Schools community is known for its tight bonds, and today's story is a living proof of that. D2C Chronicles welcomes Ashu and her team, the community that has instilled and revived the spirit of humanity in all of us. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're honored to have you with us in this conversation. How are you all doing?
You're doing good.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Okay, before we head on to other questions, tell us something about you great women. What are you all doing? And I'm sure everybody out there, our viewers, would like to know more about you.
My name is Ashu Tomar, and I'm currently working with Ambit Capital in their asset management business, managing their marketing and strategy. And I'm IIM Indore 2012 pass out.
My name is Himadri Gangwar, and I'm from IIM Indore batch of 2012. And currently, I'm working with DSP Investment Managers in their risk and quantitative analysis.
Hi, I'm Kanika Goyal. I am a partner at the Positivity Company, and we do trainings and workshops in corporates to help people get skills, positivity skills, and improve their productivity at work. I'm from the batch of 2006, IIM Kozhikode.
Hi, I'm Suchitra Laxman. I'm a M&A consultant at Deloitte. I'm from the 2006 batch of IIM Lucknow.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys, again for joining us. Now, the first question is that one moment you were out there working in the corporate atmosphere, and the other moment you chose to don a cape and help the migrant workers out there to go back home. What is the entire story behind this? What was the thought process, and how did this all work out for you?
So I think the lockdown was first of its kind, right? Maybe, for us, for our for our previous generations also, this is the first of its kind. And when the lockdown was announced, we all were never prepared, because we never knew that something like this could happen. So we all were trying to cope up with this adverse situation. Somehow, as the lockdown was extended and the situation persisted, we started seeing these migrants walking the long path back to their villages, because they lost their jobs. They had no money, no food to sustain in our bigger cities. They started walking back to their hometowns, and seeing that somewhere it did struck a chord with all of us, and we started feeling this helplessness, that what is there that we can do to help these fellow Indians who are walking. And yes, somewhere I would not say that we are the privileged ones, but yes, compared to them, yes, the pandemic did not impact us that much. So suddenly our own challenges seemed very insignificant in front of them, and it made us feel very helpless. And when I started when I discussed this feeling with other women from this community, I realized that it's not just me, but all of us were having this feeling. And that's when we realized the power of collective, right? That what as a probably somebody at a better situation, what can we do to help this, rather than feeling helpless, rather than being part of the problem, we decided to be the part of the solution. So we all came together. We decided how can we do it. And meanwhile, somebody shared this article of actor Sonu Sood, who was already doing something on the similar lines. And we decided to approach him, and because it's a lockdown situation. We cannot figure out the logistics, right? We cannot step out of our house. Since he was already doing it, we thought it's better that we ride along with him. He's already figured out the logistics, permissions, and all those things. So we decided to join hands with him, and the project was taken off from there. And we started collecting funds through a fundraising campaign that we started, and we realized that within a short span of time, we got a huge response. So that again makes us realize that the problem that we were talking about, it kind of resonated with everybody. and that's why that kind of response, the kind of response that we received, was really overwhelming. And yeah, so we decided to work on this project, and as we went along, we realized that Sonu's team also needed help in terms of not just in terms of uh, sponsoring the buses, but also in terms of back-end operations, because the things are very dynamic. Things are very dynamic. Every day the rules were changing, that okay, today the trains are going, tomorrow the trains are not going. So everything was very dynamic, and hence they required lot of manpower. And from that front also, all of us came together and helped the team. And yes, we are glad that we are we could be the part of the solution.
So I must say, Ashu, you've done a commendable job. You all have done a very nice and a very heartwarming job. And I think your story is going to inspire a lot of people out there who look up to you for inspiration and motivation. Now, there's this
Thanks,
another
Tamu.
question, people, that is, what are the challenges that you faced when you decided to hop into such a great mission? Because there obviously are a few roadblocks that you encounter once you step into such a mission.
Yeah, so I would say there were two roadblocks that we faced, and I want to address them, from both the external roadblocks that we faced, and the secondly, I want to address them in terms of the internal roadblocks that we faced. So externally, if you look at when this whole COVID situation happened, everything was very dynamic all the time. In terms of what's happening on the ground, what's happening with the government, what's happening with everyday policies, how long the lockdown is, what's happening in terms of the lockdown also. So the on-ground reality, was very, very different. And when we were working with Sonu's team, and which means his volunteers as well, and the migrants, we really had to be, it wasn't as if there was a structure to it. So we always had to be ready that within 3-4 hours, something could change. While we're getting permissions, maybe the permissions are taking longer, or the permission has come, but suddenly the migrants, some of the migrants that we had thought will go, more migrants have come. And then we're trying to figure out how to manage the situation. They were, on-ground realities in terms of today maybe they cannot go because one permission has not come, because there were permissions from the local police station, from the Maharashtra government, as well as permissions required from the external receiving government that were required. So the situation was always very dynamic, as well as the policies on a daily basis in terms of what is allowed, what's not allowed, can the migrants go, and we were sending them across the country from Mumbai to UP, to Jharkhand, to Bihar, to Kerala, Orissa, right? So it was really important to be willing to, if there's a problem, to not get stuck with the problem, but to solve it and move forward and be very dynamic. So, we're all worked in corporate culture where things are more structured and planned. So one of the things was that we had to quickly realize that the on-ground reality is very different, and it's changing not only by the day, but by the hour. Like if you miss the deadline of a bus needing to go by 5 o'clock, then you have to be prepared that it'll go tomorrow morning, because late night travel is not safe. Migrants are traveling, all the way over a 3-4 day journey. So there could be roadblocks even in terms of what happens along the journey, and to keep that in mind. So a lot of, there was a lot of learning in terms of the fact that real life in such an uncertain situation is very dynamic and changing, and we had to sort of like be ready to adapt and be ready for doing certain things which sometimes may not be always comfortable, but then we have to, within that frame, within that situation, make the best of it. In terms of internal, I think what I would say is that we are a group of 10 people who came together, and initially it started with Ashu and Sharmila and Manimala, who got together and discussed with Sonu, so then quickly set up the collaboration to basically work with him as a partner, and for the on-ground logistics. So, we are 10 people with very different personalities who got together to do this. And while the project was actually lasted for 3 weeks, and within 2 weeks, we raised 60 lakhs. So we also, had to kind of work with each other very quickly and not get stuck if there were problems. And, when you are having all these diverse opinions on what's the best way to go forward, there also, discussions, conflicts, arguments, and how do you not get stuck in the friction, but quickly move forward and solve. So I think that was a great learning for us, whether we're working with Sonu's team, whether we're working with each other, figuring out what's the best processes to do this, because we also want to make sure that, there is a governance in place to be able to manage the funds, because they are donor funds raised by the community of IIM community across not just India, but across the world. And we do end up having to communicate even the updates of how these funds are being utilized, what is the impact. So it was very important that we try to bring the structures that we know, and how to do things in an accountable manner within this dynamic situation of 3 weeks, which actually felt like maybe 3-4 months for us, because we would be on Zoom calls for 3-4 hours in the initial 4 days. And then as we bonded more and got more comfortable with each other, we quickly were able to reduce them to an 1 hour call. So I think some of these, learning how to sort of manage conflict, how to work, how to divide the work, and separate teams then had their own separate WhatsApp groups in terms of who's managing the Milap campaign online, who's managing the governance, who's managing the communication, who's managing the migrant tracking and effort, who's managing all the data collation, so that we could be very efficient and also be able to trust each other and not, get into conflicts. So I think these were some of the few things that we felt in the first 2-3 days of 1 week, and then we quickly adapted and became better and better at it. So it was great learning experience from that perspective of how to work in unstructure, but get the job done. And actually, finally, we utilized all the funds, sent some 30 plus buses, 1,000 plus migrants to 11 cities across 4-5 states. So I think that was a great learning experience as well through these challenges.
I think what we would have typically taken 6 months to do, we had to squeeze it and do it in 3 weeks. That was the challenge, and the typical team formation that goes, you form, storm, norm, and perform. We had to do it like in 1 week instead of the typical time that it takes. Yeah. And in a very dynamic and changing environment. So that was the difficult part.
Definitely. What you guys have done, I think many of us were imagining all this while, and we were wanting to do something, but we couldn't for some reasons. Again, there's this one relating question, I think one question that's related to this part, that at times there is a communication gap between the two committees, that is between you and the migrant workers. Did you face any such communication gap, or were you not able to convey your message to some people because you couldn't connect with them because of language issues or something of that sort?
Like, in terms of communication, I don't think there was any language issue as such, because most of these migrants were from the Hindi speaking states. So be it Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand. So there was no language barrier as such. And throughout this process, we were communicating with them, like right from the onboarding till the time they reach their home states, whether be it their home, like respective homes, or be it the quarantine centers. So we were all throughout communicating with them throughout the journey. So, these migrants are basically the people who are running the wheels of the city. There were people like painters, our cooks, drivers, people who are involved in the day-to-day operations and who are responsible for running the cities. So, the kind of communication we had with them started with trying to understand what were their stories, what were the distress they were going through. Like, some of them did not have the money to meet the, arrange for their meals. Some of them did not have the money to pay for their rents. And they had borrowed money and the funds from their friends. So trying to understand what helplessness they were going through, that was the first part of the process. Then we tried to, once we had onboarded and got the details for them, we had to explain the process to them, that where did they have to go to board the bus? What was the process? What it would be like in their own respective states? What would be the quarantine process like? How would the journey be? Whether they'll get food or not? So we were communicating all those things. Then apart from that, we were also, I would say, fortunate enough to see that swing in their emotions, right? From their feeling of desperation and helplessness at one point in time to the happiness and joy they got when they reunited with their families. So we saw it from very close quarters. And I would say that we were very fortunate enough to be a part of those conversations. And some of these people were actually so, full of gratitude when they reached their hometowns, that they sent us video messages, audio messages. They would send us pictures all throughout the journey. And they would always be, full of praises for us and for Sonu Sood's team. And obviously, that joy of uniting with their own families, and that feeling they got that, now we are safe from infection, and, we are able to breathe in fresh air. So I would like to quote one of them. Like there was this person whom he was one of the team leaders, and I was constantly in touch with him all throughout the journey. So this person got really emotional and sentimental, and when he reached his hometown, he was like, आज के ज़माने में कोई पूछता ही कौन है? Like you're constantly in touch with me throughout the journey, right? And so that was like, a very, very emotional moment for me as well. And then there were certain others who were like full of gratitude for all of us. And some were like, गाँव की खुली हवा में सांस लेके हमको बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है. So those were the kind of conversations we had. So definitely no roadblock or no barriers as such. But we made sure that our endeavor was that throughout the journey, we are always there to listen to them, whatever be the situation, be it in terms of any details that they wanted, or in terms of explaining them what the process is, or in case they had to be counseled or we had to allay their fears, we were always there throughout the journey with them.
Yeah, I don't think there was ever any period where there was any communication issue, nor was it language-wise or even emotion-wise. Initially there would be a lot of desperate calls, and we would sort of see them through that journey of that desperation, turning into gratitude eventually. And that's been like the best part of this project, getting those messages of gratitude, whether it was voice notes or pictures or videos, and that's just been the most wonderful part. And like there are a couple of examples where one person used to work here as a waiter in one of the restaurants, and he promised me that one he will come back here, he will be a waiter in that restaurant, and when if at all I visit that restaurant, he'll ensure that I get a free meal. And then another person basically said that he used to work as an attender in at a cosmetologist. He said, if you ever need any beauty treatments, I'll get you a discount when I come back. So, and these were all not really destitute people. These were all people who were doing hard work, and they were leading a decent life. And but Mumbai is a really expensive city, and the last 3 months under lockdown, where they did not have salaries, whatever savings they had, they just gone. So these are all people who are looking forward to come back when situations improves. And I don't think there was any conflict at all in terms of communication there. We really understood each other, and they were always full of gratitude for what we were trying to do. Once or twice there have been incidents where people got a little maybe frustrated that they have to wait long, because there are quite a few people waiting. But we understood that frustration, and we also said that we are trying our best, and they sort of got the point.
I must say your initiative has made countless people believe that humanity is still there, it's still out there. And it's amazing to see you guys working so hard. You've worked so hard to send these people home. One more thing. Now we know that the pandemic is far from over. It's here. It's governing a world, it's governing the economy, and it's governing the people. How, amidst this crisis, did you ensure that you get the right data of the migrants, and how did you prepare for all the essential paperwork? How did you make that available in this time of crisis?
So I have been, part of the volunteering team where we are collecting the data and going through all these calls. So there's a group of around 50 volunteers, not just from us. So this is basically everybody supporting the on-ground operations that Sonu is doing and for sending the migrants. And there are about 15 of us women from IIM community who are part of that volunteering group. And it's not really a glamorous job. It's basically, people basically send you photos on a sheet of paper where they've written 30 people's names and Aadhaar numbers and phone numbers, and you're actually sitting and typing out the data. It's not any management or MBA job. It's just data entry, but it's important. And and we've stayed up nights just entering that data into the Excel sheet. So initially we got a lot of data because everybody knew that this was happening. So we would Sonu Sood would tweet about it. So, and there was also a mobile number where people would call. And then once our mobile number started going out, because we were calling up people, our numbers spread and we got calls from lots of people. And then there was eventually a Google form as well where people could fill, but most of these people can't fill up the form. So they would then send us a photo on WhatsApp with their Aadhaar number and name, and we would actually enter it in the Google form. And so that's how the data, and once this spread, they also have a network. So everybody sort of got to know each other and the data would come in. The first step after we got the data and put it in the Excel was calling up people and confirming their details, and also trying to get a sense of how needy they are. And obviously you can't ask, you need to be a little sensitive in how you ask that question. You sort of ask what is their profession and why do they want to go. Abhi, rent ka problem hai kya hai, and just get that within a minute or two, get a little sense that these are really needy people. And I would say 95% of them were needy. Hardly anybody where we felt like, okay, this person is not really needy. Most of them were needy. So then we would say that, okay, this person needs to go. And then we would put all the sheet in that, we put all the data in lots of different Google Sheets and Excel sheets, and then see, okay, right now there are too many for UP, so let's arrange 5 buses. So there are enough people for UP to send a train full of people. So then let's get the permissions and send them. That's how we sort of went about it.
So in addition to the volunteer initiative which Suchitra talked about, there were also, we were also getting a lot of requests from within our IIM community. So there were people were referring that, I know this particular set of migrants, can you do something about it? So we were getting all those requests, and again, the data was flowing in terms of, it was either in images or handwritten notes. So we had to do the data entry, then again start with the calling. And so the endeavor at our end was to make sure that the data was complete and accurate, so that once we hand it on to Sonu Sood's team for actual permissions and processing, it should be complete, and basically to reduce the turnaround time at their end. So that was the entire endeavor at our end. Also, since in the initial few days, our numbers got to spread to these migrants, and then they had their own networks. So we started getting random distress calls from people. So that was another channel from where we were getting requests. But then ultimately, we had to be in sync with the volunteer team, with Sonu Sood's team, and coordinate with everyone so that we have the entire data in place, and we do not miss out any person who is in need to go back to their home.
You've sent so many people back home. I cannot even imagine how grateful and thankful these people would be to you guys for sending them back to their respective places. It's amazing to see that.
Yeah, I will really cherish those voice notes and videos I have. I think they are going to go into my all-time favorite folders.
Definitely. Now, one more question comes up here, and that is that the lockdown norms are easing out slowly and steadily, but we are seeing that the pandemic is not going anywhere. We are still into it, and we are knee deep into it. We don't know when the situation will finally come to an end. And because of this, we are hearing something that has come to light recently, and that is mental illness and depression. Now, two questions emerge from this point. The first question that I would like to ask you all is, what is your take on people like me and you all who are high functioning and are still suffering and going through and fighting mental illness? What should they do? And how should the society and how should the general course of society change in accordance with the situation so that we are more empathetic towards these people, and how should we function in general?
So I think as high functioning people, we also, a community of IIM women, I think all of us have seen in corporate life, in corporate careers, that we do tend to put a lot of emphasis on achievements and doing a lot of things and, being sort of super women in every area of our life. So I think what the pandemic has done, because, suddenly your routine was completely disrupted, two, three things happened. People felt a lot of uncertainty about the future. In terms of when are they going to, is this ever going to end? When are they going to be able to get out of their homes? And how is this going to impact their careers and their financial security? Will there be a salary cut, or will there be a job loss? So that is something which is playing a lot on the minds. The other thing that's playing a lot on the minds is, will they be able to meet their targets? Because we are all in corporate careers, and luckily for most of us, we have a job and we have to, on a day-to-day basis, continue working, right? So that's the other thing that's playing on the minds. And then you do have organizational targets, which, maybe in the first 1 or 2 months, organizations kind of step back, but they are back into these conversations, even though COVID is very much still there. As the lockdown has eased, so back to business is kind of coming back into the picture. The second is, the social isolation that people are feeling, because there is that, connection that going to the workplace is not happening anymore. You spend most of your time with your colleagues and you may fight with them, you may have issues, but at the end of the day, you like your chai, your lunch breaks, you're going out for a coffee break, spending time talking to each other. So a lot of social isolation is being felt. Routines have been completely disrupted. And so I think what's happening with high functioning people, we are also seeing a lot of people doing a lot of things. So I think it's important. One really important thing is to accept the situation. and to sort of say, I don't have to put in the pressure on myself or my team or my family that we all have to do many things. It's okay if we can't do anything also in a given day. And to accept that, perfection or achievement is not the need of the hour, but what is need of the hour is to take care of our mind, body, heart, and soul. And what are the things to do to feed that? Because ultimately, even our body is like an instrument which needs to be recharged for it to be able to manage through this endemic. And what happens, when you are going through uncertainty, you feel a lot of anxiety, and anxiety is very exhausting on the brain. And when you feel exhausted, you feel burnt out, or you feel desperation, or you feel hopelessness, helplessness, or you feel like you're a loser, you're not doing enough. So, all these kind of feelings start coming back, and they're actually under stress. They just become more and more because we anyways have that self-talk, but under stress, it becomes much, much more. So I think the things that I would say people can do is that they should try to have as much structure and routine in their day. So they get up early, they have a shower, they have breakfast on time, they try to have a to-do list of work they want to finish. Maybe not everything, but 2 or 3 things so that they feel good about themselves. They eat healthy food. They try and do some form of exercise, whether it's a walk or some stretching. They hydrate throughout the day every 2 hours and have water, because when you're stressed, you forget all these things and you tend to eat junk food, chocolates, spend hours and hours binge watching Netflix. And ultimately, it takes a toll on you. So small, things that you can do: meditate for 15 minutes, exercise, eat properly, spend time with your family. You actually have it. So value it, spend time, take that 1 hour and just do something fun, play like a game of cards or Uno, or cook a meal with them. And these things really uplift you, right? Because you feel connected with each other. And do the same thing with even your work colleagues through Zoom calls or video calls or phone calls, and ask them how they're doing. If they're struggling, listen to them. When you help other people, you feel very, very happy. I think all of us can say that the reason we felt so much passion even in our migrants project is because we were helping, and we were helping each other also in a way, and connecting on a daily basis, the social connection, finding meaning and purpose through other things just outside of, what is it in it for me through my work. So not just being self-serving, right? When you help others, it makes you really happy. How can you also do that with your friends and family in this time where everyone is struggling? So I think these are the things that one can do. I think as a society, it is making us much more, bringing a lot more empathy. Also, it is bringing mental health, which has got a lot of stigma attached to it, and a lot of unwillingness to talk about it in personal lives, in day-to-day lives, and also in the corporate space. It's finally coming in the forefront. And I think as a society, finally India, at least I hope in India, where it's been a bigger challenge, mental health and mental wellness will become much, much more important. And like, when we go to school and we're taught how to manage academics, exercise, grades, what career, even teaching life skills of mental health and wellness will be taught from school onwards, because actually mental health and wellness is something for every individual, and every individual needs to practice it and manage it on a daily basis for life. It's not like only some people suffer from it, or some people have depression, or some people, I think at different points in life, everybody goes through it in varying degrees. For some people, it becomes very bad, and it could go into, where they lose their jobs, or they, it impacts their relationships, or they commit suicide, as we've seen. But it doesn't mean that others are not struggling. So everybody's struggling. So how can we, bring the conversation and awareness so that people can learn the coping skills? And they're very simple skills, but it's all about habits, and habits take time to change from small, small steps. If the conversation start in school, in college, I think that will be even better. Like I can already see in the last 3 months, corporates have done so many wellness programs, which in the last 2 years, I did not see them do in my line of work. But since March, the moment the pandemic hit, most of them have done programs around mental wellness, how to manage the mind and body, gratitude, kindness, compassion, how to build trust, how to manage connections. So I think as a society, that's where we need to move, and that's what we need to do, that we bring mental wellness and these life skills to the forefront from school onwards.
While the society and our corporate culture is beginning to embrace this, and while there is more openness, I think personally I would like to say is that continue to keep your mind and body both healthy. But if you ever feel like you need help, first of all, reach out to people, and secondly,
before it gets worse, please take professional help. Like, don't have that stigma that, going to a psychiatrist or going to a psychologist or a therapist is just like going to a doctor. If your body is not okay, you go to a doctor. Similarly, if your mind is not feeling okay, and you don't need to wait for it to get really bad. Just the minute you start feeling that this is beyond what my friends and family can help, because friends and family and your colleagues can only help so much, just go seek professional help. It might take time, but just don't have a taboo around it. Just please seek professional help if you feel things are getting out of hand.
Yes, definitely. I think more and more people now will probably be respected for being in the mental health profession and get help, and not feel that there is a stigma you have to hide about it. To be able to go take the help and also be able to speak about the fact that you are taking help.
Yeah. And also it right now it may not be affordable to everybody because it is expensive, though there are more affordable choices these days, especially online counseling, etc. But since you spoke about people like us, it is affordable to some of us at least. So the ones who can afford it should definitely use that option if they need it.
I cannot agree more with you guys, and I think that we need to remove this taboo from a society of seeking professional help, because this is what happens if somebody talks about this and they go and seek professional help. They're always pointed out from the society that okay, this person is getting mental treatment, and they don't understand that this is what he or she needs the most at that point of time. This brings me to another question, and that was the second part of my question, and this is that we are facing this situation that we are all stuck in a lockdown, and this is something that we might have seen in movies, but we wouldn't have ever imagined that we'd be facing in real life. Do you think that in the post-COVID times we will be stepping into a more empathetic world, and how long is this going to last?
So yes, in fact, it's very beautiful. The response that we got in our campaign, as well as the way the society has rallied for the other initiatives by common man taken up in this time of crisis. It reinforces my belief, our belief that the empathy does exist, and it does exist in the society, and probably it just takes a crisis to surface. And yes, so the answer is yes. We'll be more empathetic towards each other. uh, I'll just share a couple of examples over here. So we did get significant share. So one of the railways employees, a retired railway employees, I think he's in his 70s 80s, he shared a significant part of his pension with us. And he wrote to us that, I'm sharing this with you because the work that you guys are doing, I was feeling that how can I help. And now that I see that you guys are doing it, so he shared a significant part of his pension. Really moved, it really moved me. And you know so yes, we all can resonate with the initiative. We all can resonate with the initiative, that somewhere everybody wants to be part of, everybody wants to do something for others. So the society is definitely moving towards this empathetic, what do you call, it's being more empathetic towards each other. Also, we can clearly see that the priorities are changing. So earlier the priority that we all had was, okay, let me find a job in Hong Kong, Singapore, UK, US. I see a lot of lot of these things changing now. uh, and people are now wanting to move back to their respective countries, move closer to their families, because somewhere they realized during this pandemic it gave us good enough time to think about it. And they realized the importance of having the family around, right? And at the end of the day, yes, we should aspire to uh, do a lot more in life, but there are certain things which are non-negotiable, right? So having a family around is non-negotiable. So I see a lot of these things changing. We all can also see the way we are today, being more aware about the climate, Right. So the pandemic has suddenly shown we were not able to realize, whenever we used to talk that pollution kam kar do, ye kam kar do, we never realized that what change it can bring. But now the lockdown was forced upon us, and it did change. So people can see the change, right? You can see clearer skies, you can see wild animals out on the road, you can start, you see more greenery around you. So all of these things have changed, and I think somewhere, it is blessing in disguise, I would say, that you see a more beautiful world around you today. So definitely, even though the lockdown was forced upon all of us, but it did bring something positive somewhere. And I feel that we, once this thing normalizes, we will move towards a much better, a much caring society.
Yeah, I think I also want to add one thing. I think unlike a lot of other, events that happen in people's life which cause a lot of distress, like whether it could be, violence or having a disease or having some like a job loss. What COVID has done is it's a collective event which has happened globally, not only at a country level, but in every country. So everybody across the world has been impacted by it, and in some manner or the other, right? So everyone is able to feel pain, and everyone is able to feel pain and relate to each other through the difficulties that we are going through, and hence feel that collective human pain and that collective human empathy at a global level. So I think that itself is causing a shift, in one go, hopefully, and hence bringing empathy, not in pockets, but at a much larger extent, because awareness, it's causing awareness that, we all feel the same pain inside, and hence it's making it possible to feel empathy much more. So I think, yes, we are probably going to go into a better world, even though there is going to be a lot of issues that we'll have to deal with for rebuilding. That's going to happen to economies and nations. That's going to be the call of the hour.
I would like to highlight 2 points here that I really liked in whatever Kanika and Ashu said. First thing, where Ashu mentioned that there are a few things that are non-negotiable, and I totally agree with that part. And the second point that Kanika mentioned, that everybody is feeling the same pain and everybody feels the same pain. We just express it in different ways. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Thank you guys for sharing that. What advice would you like to give to the young students who will be joining IIMs and other B schools this year? What should they be looking at?
So, my advice for the young students would be that, given the competitive environment that we are in, then along with the academic excellence and building a well-rounded personality, we should also try to strike a balance and take some time to pause, reflect, and maybe meditate for a few minutes every day, because that will help in building mental resilience. And that will go a long way in not just the 2 years of MBA, but also in the entire journey of life. So that's my advice for the new entrants.
Yeah, so I think what I would give advice is that, when you typically go to B schools, you come from undergraduate colleges where you've done really well. So you tend to think you're very, very good. And then when you enter an IIM or another B school, everybody is really bright. So suddenly, some insecurities come up and you feel the peer pressure and this comparison that sets in, like who's getting the best GPA or who's getting the best job or the highest salary or which is the best company to join. So I think one advice I will give is that it's very important to be aligned to who you are and hence decide your career path and your life path, so that you're not in the comparison game and you make healthy choices during the 2 years when you are at business school and you study those courses or those participate in those extracurricular activities which go with what you are naturally good at, and you also make career choices and life choices which are aligned to what is your purpose, because then that helps a lot from getting out of the game of social comparison or salary comparison or brand comparison, and you actually are happy about what you're doing also work wise, because after over a period of 5 to 10 years, or rather I would say 10 years, everybody pretty much ends up being at the same place. So while at that point we may think, oh, I didn't get this, or I don't, if you are actually following your true passions, you will all find that you are all doing reasonably well. And it's important to understand that you don't have to be number one or you don't have to be perfect. You should be doing reasonably well in what is your what works for you. So that would be my advice, that align your choices to who you are as a person and what makes you happy and what ticks for you and what are your strengths.
My advice to the newer lot would be do whatever you want to do, follow your passion, follow your dream, do everything that you want to, so that there are no regrets that, oh, I could have done this, I could have done that. One thing that always just try to associate yourself with some of the other social cause, because in a, it will keep you grounded, and it will also keep you in touch with the realities of life. So that is my advice to them. Also, I would want to say that for sure, maybe 1 year after your MBA, 10 years after your MBA, or 20 years after your MBA, you will falter, right? But that does not mean the end of it. So never lose hope, and always keep trying, uh, right? And all the best for their journeys.
Yeah, I think they've all given really great advice. I wish I had got this when I was just entering B school. From my perspective, I think I would say, two things. One is, you have a long career. Your career is 30 years, 40 years, and it's your career and life will go hand in hand. So don't feel bad that you didn't get into one job, or one during your placements you didn't get that one job that you wanted, or you didn't get the promotion this year, or you didn't get the salary hike this year. It's a long career, and so think of it, have a little bit more of a long term view. Don't have small goals of every year or whatever. Maybe have a 5-year plan, and it's okay, plans will also change. So try to have a little bit more long term view. And also, it's hard when you're 25, it's a little bit harder to get that long term view, but hopefully you learn to do that. And also take breaks in between. I've taken a break in between, where I just traveled, and that made me really want to come back to that rejuvenated me and recharged me. So think of your career as a 30-40 year plan, and it's not just about what you do this year and what you're going to do, what you're going to achieve in the next 6 months. Have a bit more longer term view, which might be hard initially, but try to do that. And the second one, I think, is some touching upon what Ashu said. Like, if you are getting into a B school, and especially a good B school in India, and getting into a job, you are some of the more privileged people in the country. So try to use that privilege, be aware of that, and try to have an impact. You need not do actual social work, but you can still do something in your own in your own life. Whether the way you deal with your own domestic help, or the people in your office who might not be as privileged as you. So just try to be aware of that. And one thing that sort of keeps running through my mind is, if not us, then who? You are the one who should drive the change. So try to just keep that in mind, and try to use your privilege to do something better for the world.
You've all shared a very beautiful message that we're all here to drive change. And if we are entering these schools, we should keep this in mind, that we are the privileged ones of the society, and we should work towards the social cause. It's beautiful to see such things coming from the B school community. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your journey with us. It was a pleasure talking to all of you. We hope that we step into a more empathetic world post the COVID crisis. And I'm sure that your story is going to inspire and melt a million hearts out there. And with this hope and with this prayer that this COVID scenario comes to an end soon, we bid thee farewell. Thank you so much for staying with us. Stay safe, stay home, and take care.